Imagine this, you're sitting at your kitchen table, the same one where you've shared countless meals, laughter, and stories over decades. The clock ticks softly, the afternoon light spills through the window, and yet the room feels heavier than it used to. Not because of anything you can name at first, just a quiet that lingers a little too long, a stillness that settles into your bones. This isn't the peaceful solitude you once craved after a busy day. This is loneliness, the kind that creeps in after 80, uninvited and often unspoken. It's not just a feeling, it's a reality that reshapes your days, your thoughts, and even your sense of self, and no one really warns you about it. Welcome to this video where we're diving into 3 profound realities of loneliness after 80, not to dwell in sadness, but to shine a light on what's true, what's hard, and what you can do about it. Because loneliness doesn't have to define this chapter of your life. It can be understood, faced, and even transformed into something meaningful. Today, we're here to walk through the first reality, the quiet shrinking of your world. If you're over 80 or love someone who is, stay with us. This is about seeing the truth clearly so you can live with strength, connection, and purpose. Let's get started. Reality 1. The quiet shrinking of your world. When you cross into your 80s, one of the first things you notice isn't always the creak in your knees or the slower pace of your mornings. It's the way your world, once buzzing with voices, plans, and familiar faces, starts to feel smaller. Not in a dramatic overnight way, but in a slow, almost imperceptible drift. Friends you used to meet for coffee stop coming, some because they've passed, others because they've moved away or simply can't make the trip anymore. Family members, even the ones who love you dearly, get caught up in their own lives, jobs, kids, their own aging struggles. The phone calls that once filled your evenings dwindle to a trickle. Invitations to gatherings become less frequent, and when they do come, they often feel rushed, like a checkbox on someone else's to-do list. This shrinking isn't personal, but it feels that way. You might find yourself staring at a silent phone wondering why it doesn't ring like it did a decade ago. Or walking into a familiar place, a church, a community center, a favorite diner, and realizing the faces you knew have been replaced by strangers. The laughter, the easy banter, the rhythm of connection that once felt automatic, it's not gone, but it's quieter now. And that quiet can settle into something deeper, a loneliness that doesn't always announce itself with tears or despair, but with a subtle ache like a bruise you didn't know you had until you pressed it. I met a woman named Clara, 83, who described this perfectly. She'd spent years hosting weekly card games in her living room, her home alive with chatter and the clink of teacups. But over time, her group thinned out. One friend moved to be closer to her daughter. Another passed away. A third stopped coming when her eyesight made driving difficult. Clara didn't notice the change. At first she was busy with her garden, her books, her daily routines. But one evening, as she set out the cards for a game that no one showed up for, she felt it. "It's like the world forgot to invite me back," she said. Her voice wasn't bitter, just soft, as if she was still making sense of it herself. What makes this reality so hard is how invisible it feels. In your 60s or even 70s, your social circle might still feel vibrant, friends are active, family checks, and there's a sense of momentum. But after 80, time starts to pull people away, not because they don't care, but because life moves differently for everyone. You might outlive the people who knew you best, those who remember the young, fiery version of you, the one who danced at weddings or argued over politics at the dinner table. And when those connections fade, it's not just the people you miss. It's the version of yourself they carried with them, the part of your story that feels less real when no one's there to retell it. This shrinking world can also be compounded by practical realities. Maybe you don't drive as much anymore or at all, and getting to social events feels like a hurdle. Maybe your hearing isn't what it used to be, and conversations in noisy rooms leave you exhausted. Or maybe you're just tired of reaching out, tired of being the one to make the call, tired of feeling like you're chasing a connection that used to come so easily. These barriers, small as they seem, stack up. They turn a once lively world into a quieter one where loneliness can slip in through the cracks. But here's where the strength lies. Knowing this reality gives you power over it. Loneliness after 80 isn't a sentence, it's a signal. It's your heart telling you that connection still matters, that you're still here, still hungry for meaning and belonging. And while your world may feel smaller, it's not closed off. You can rebuild, even if it looks different now. Start small. Call one person this week, even if it's just to chat for 5 minutes. Join a local group, whether it's a book club, a senior center activity, or a virtual class, if getting out is tough. Write a letter to someone you haven't spoken to in years. There's something timeless and intimate about putting pen to paper. These acts aren't just about filling time, they're about reclaiming your place in the world. And don't underestimate the power of new connections. Your 80s are a time when you can meet people who see you not just for who you were, but for who you are now, a person with stories, wisdom, and a perspective that younger generations crave. I heard about a man named Henry, 87, who started volunteering at a local library, reading to kids once a week. At first, he did it to stay busy, but soon he found himself laughing with the children, swapping stories with their parents, and feeling a spark he thought he'd lost. I didn't realize how much I needed them, he said, and how much they needed me. The truth is, connection after 80 takes intention. It's not about waiting for the world to come to you. It's about stepping toward it, even if that step is small. It's about recognizing that your world hasn't shrunk beyond repair. It's just waiting for you to stretch it open again, and you have the courage for that. You've lived through decades of change, wars, losses, joys, reinventions. This is just another chapter, and you get to write it. If this resonates with you, please drop number 1 in the comments below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next part of this journey. Your support keeps us creating content to inform, inspire, and walk alongside you. Welcome back to our journey through the unspoken realities of loneliness after 80. If you're still here, it means you're ready to face these truths with open eyes and a steady heart. Today, we're diving into the second reality, the weight of being seen differently. This isn't just about how others perceive you. It's about how those perceptions can shape your sense of self, leaving you feeling isolated in ways you didn't expect. Let's walk through this together, not to dwell in the heaviness, but to find ways to lift it, to reconnect with who you are, and to reclaim your place in the world. Here we go. Reality 2. The weight of being seen differently. As you move through your 80s, something subtle but profound starts to happen. The way the world sees you shifts, and it's not always kind. You might notice it in small moments, at first a cashier speaking louder than necessary, assuming you can't hear, or a younger relative explaining something simple, as if you've never used a phone before. Strangers might offer you a seat with a smile, but it's the kind of smile that feels more like pity than respect. Doctors might start addressing your children instead of you, as if your voice no longer carries the weight it once did. These moments stack up, and they can leave you feeling like you're fading into the background of your own life. This shift isn't just about others' assumptions, it's about how those assumptions make you feel. You've spent decades building a life, raising families, solving problems, making choices, maybe even shaping your community. You've been the one others turn to for advice, for strength, for a laugh. But after 80, the world sometimes stops seeing that version of you. Instead, it sees an elderly person, a label that flattens your story into a stereotype. And when that happens, it's easy to feel like you're becoming invisible, not because you've changed, but because others have stopped looking closely. I met a man named Arthur, 82, who felt this shift keenly. He'd been a mechanic for over 40 years, the kind of person who could fix anything with his hands and a bit of patience. People used to seek him out not just for car repairs, but for his stories, his dry humor, his knack for making sense of chaos. But after he retired and his wife passed, he noticed a change. At the grocery store, people rushed past him. At community events, younger folks nodded politely, but didn't linger to talk. "It's like I'm a ghost," he told me, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying a quiet hurt. "I'm still the same Arthur, but they see someone else." What makes this reality so heavy is that it's not just about being overlooked, it's about the loneliness that comes when you start to doubt your own presence. When the world treats you as fragile, forgettable, or irrelevant, it can creep into your thoughts. You might hesitate to speak up at a family gathering, wondering if your opinion still matters. You might avoid sharing a story because you're not sure anyone's listening. Over time, this can create a kind of internal isolation where you pull back not because you want to, but because it feels safer than risking dismissal. This shift is often unintentional. Society is fast-paced, obsessed with youth and productivity, and it tends to forget that age doesn't erase your depth. A waiter might assume you want the senior menu without asking. A neighbor might offer help with your groceries, not because you need it, but because they assume you do. These acts aren't always unkind, but they can sting when they reduce you to a category rather than a person, and when you've lived through decades of triumphs, losses, and lessons being seen as just old, feels like a theft of your identity, your voice, and your place in the world. There's another layer to this. The way you see yourself can start to shift too. When others treat you as less capable, you might begin to question your own strength. Maybe you avoid trying something new, like joining a class or starting a hobby, because you've internalized the idea that people your age don't do that. Maybe you shy away from social events because you're tired of feeling like the odd one out. This self-doubt can be a silent partner to loneliness, whispering that you don't belong anymore, even when you do. But here's the truth. You are not defined by how others see you. You are still the person who navigated life's storms, who laughed until your sides ached, who loved fiercely and learned deeply. The world may not always see it, but you can remind them and yourself. One way to do this is by claiming your space intentionally. Speak up even if your voice shakes. Share your stories even if it's just with one person. Correct someone kindly when they assume too much about what you can or can't do. These small acts are declarations that you're still here, still vibrant, still you. I heard about a woman named Margaret, 85, who faced this head on. She noticed people at her community center treating her like she was fragile, always offering to carry things or speaking slowly. Instead of retreating, she decided to teach a knitting class, not because she needed the attention, but because she wanted to share something she loved. At first, she worried no one would show up, but they did. Young and old, they came to learn, and more than that, to hear her stories of growing up in a small town of knitting blankets for her kids during tough winters. I realized I wasn't just teaching them stitches, she said. I was reminding them, I'm still here. You can also find spaces that honor your presence. Look for groups or activities where your experience is valued, maybe a historical society, a storytelling circle, or even an online community where you can share your wisdom. These spaces remind you that your perspective isn't just relevant, it's needed. And don't shy away from younger people. They may not always know how to approach you, but many are hungry for the kind of insight only you can offer. A simple conversation with a grandchild, a neighbor, or even a stranger at the park can bridge that gap. Another powerful step is to redefine how you see yourself. Instead of focusing on what you can't do as easily anymore, celebrate what you still can. Maybe you can't run a marathon, but you can walk a block and notice the flowers in a way you never did before. Maybe you can't host big dinners, but you can invite one person over for tea and a story. These moments aren't small, they're profound. They're proof that you're still shaping the world, even if it's in quieter ways. If this reality hits home for you, please leave number 2 in the comments to let me know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next part of this conversation. Your support helps us keep sharing content that sees you, hears you, and walks with you. You're still here with us, and that means you're ready to keep exploring the truths about loneliness after 80, not to shy away from them, but to face them with courage and clarity. Thank you for staying on this journey. Today we're diving into the third reality, the empty spaces where purpose used to live. This is about those moments when the days feel long, the quiet feels heavy, and you start to wonder what you're still here for. It's a reality that can feel like loneliness in disguise, but it's also a chance to rediscover meaning in ways you might not expect. Let's walk through this together with honesty and hope to find the light in those empty spaces. Reality 3. The empty spaces where purpose used to live. When you reach your 80s, life often slows down in ways you didn't anticipate. The calendar that once overflowed with work deadlines, family events, or community roles starts to look sparse. The mornings that used to hum with purpose, getting kids to school, tackling a job, or planning a gathering, now stretch into afternoons that feel aimless. This isn't just about having less to do. It's about the quiet that settles in when the roles that defined you for decades start to fade. And in that quiet, loneliness can creep in not as a loud ache, but as a subtle question. What now? For so many years, your purpose was clear. Maybe you were a parent, a spouse, a teacher, a volunteer, or the one who kept everyone else on track. You were needed, relied upon, busy. But after 80, those demands often shift. Children are grown, careers are behind you, and the community you once served might not call as often. Suddenly, you have time, more time than you've had in decades, but it doesn't always feel like freedom. It can feel like a void, a space where purpose used to live, and when that space stays empty, it can turn into loneliness, the kind that makes you wonder if your best days are behind you. I met a woman named Dorothy, 86, who felt this deeply. She'd been a nurse for over 40 years, the kind of person who could calm a patient with a smile and handle emergencies with a steady hand. After she retired, she expected to feel relieved, but instead she felt adrift. I used to wake up knowing exactly why I was here, she told me. Now I wake up and wonder what I'm supposed to do with all this time. She tried filling her days with hobbies, gardening, reading, but they didn't replace the sense of being needed. The quiet hours after lunch, when the house felt too still, became her hardest moments. That's when the loneliness would settle in, whispering that her purpose had retired along with her career. What makes this reality so challenging is how it sneaks up on you. Society celebrates retirement as a golden era, a time for rest and relaxation. And while rest is beautiful, it can also leave you feeling unmoored if you haven't found a new way to matter. The tasks that once filled your days, whether they were big, like running a business, or small, like organizing a family picnic, gave structure to your life. Without them, the days can blur together, and that lack of structure can feel isolating. You might find yourself replaying old memories not just out of nostalgia, but because they remind you of a time when you felt essential. And when those memories meet an empty present, they can stir up a quiet grief, a longing for a role you're not sure how to replace. This emptiness isn't just about time, it's about identity. When you've spent decades being the provider, the caregiver, the problem solver, losing those roles can make you feel like you're losing yourself. You might notice it in small ways, hesitating to join a conversation because you're not sure your perspective is still relevant, or avoiding new activities because you're afraid they won't fill the gap. Loneliness thrives in these moments, not because you're alone, but because you're disconnected from a sense of purpose that once anchored you. But here's the powerful truth. Purpose doesn't disappear after 80, it just changes shape. You may not be leading meetings or raising kids anymore, but you have something even more profound to offer presence. Your years of experience, your stories, your perspective, they're gifts that no one else can give. And finding purpose now isn't about doing more. It's about being more. It's about showing up for yourself and others in ways that feel meaningful, even if they're small. I heard about a man named Sam, 88, who found this in an unexpected way. After losing his wife and retiring from his job as a carpenter, he felt like his days had lost their rhythm. He started spending mornings at a local community garden, not because he loved plants, but because it was close to home. At first, he just weeded in silence, but soon he started talking to the younger volunteers. They asked him about his life, how he built furniture by hand, how he and his wife danced to old records on Saturday nights. Those conversations became his new purpose. "I'm not building tables anymore," he said, "but I'm building something else, memories for them and for me." Sam didn't need a grand role. He found meaning in being present, in sharing who he was. You can do this too. Start by asking yourself, what do I love even a little? Maybe it's telling stories to your grandkids, writing letters to old friends, or helping a neighbor with a small task. These acts don't need to be big to be purposeful. They just need to connect you to someone or something beyond yourself. If mobility is a challenge, consider virtual ways to contribute, joining an online book club, recording voice messages for family, or even sharing your wisdom on a community forum. These small steps remind you that you're still part of the world's story. Another way to fill those empty spaces is to redefine purpose as self-kindness. After 80, one of the most radical acts is to show up for yourself with curiosity and care. Try something new, even if it feels small. A new recipe, a journal entry, a walk, to notice the changing leaves. These moments aren't just distractions, they're ways to reconnect with the person you've always been, the one who's still growing, still learning. And when you nurture yourself, you create a foundation for connecting with others, because purpose and connection go hand in hand. If this reality speaks to you, drop number 3 in the comments to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that button and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next video. Your support helps us keep creating content that honors your journey and lifts you up.